So welcome everybody to the post-grad study abroad virtual panel that we're hosting today. So just to give you some background, I invited 3 different PC alumni to join this panel to talk about their post-grad experiences while being abroad and just like what they did there and any advice that they have for students that are interested in pursuing those experiences. So for the first 2 to 4 minutes, if you guys could introduce yourselves and like your name, your hometown, like who you are, where you're working or where you're planning to work, and the company you're part of, and like what you do for work. Any of you can start. If you want, like Jeffrey, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can definitely start.
Okay,
Absolutely.
awesome.
Um, so hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Anderson, PC class of 2011. I think about that. I was a global studies major with a poli-sci minor and focused with global studies in Africa and the Middle East. Um, my capstone project was on it was on the explosive remnants of war in Afghanistan. So looking at landmines, cluster munition remnants, and had some really fascinating interviews with that with folks from the UN. Yeah, I gotta go back and revisit that. It's been a minute. Um, I am originally from Gardner, Massachusetts, which is like Central Mass, New Hampshire border, um, and currently live in Salem, Massachusetts. So kind of coastal, spooky town, USA. So come see us for Halloween if you want to. Great place for it. Um, and during undergrad, studied abroad in Stellenbosch, South Africa, with the AIFS program, and loved it so much that as I was looking for grad programs, found one that was a really good fit at the University of Cape Town Graduate School of Business, and so went back for a 1 year MBA at UCT, and that's my like overall story. Did I hit all the points? Anything else I should share?
No, yeah, you talked about where you work and everything?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't. I work at Athena Health, so that's an electronic health record company based out of Boston, and I'm a product manager there. So I lead a team of developers. I have six folks who are coding on my team, and these are experience and analytics people, and we build software products for healthcare.
Awesome, thank you.
Absolutely.
Victoria, if you would like to go next.
Great. Hi, everyone. Victoria Neff. I graduated from Providence College in 2009. I was a global studies major. I think that our incoming class was the first class that the global studies major was offered, if I'm not mistaken. Nick is nodding, so yes, which was really special because our group was those that were incoming freshmen that had declared global study as their major. Were really close, tightly knit group, and we just did a lot together and experienced a lot together. So that's definitely a highlight of my time at PC. It's also a writing minor, and I studied abroad in Switzerland over the summer between my junior and senior year, mainly because I was also a college athlete at Providence College. And so it was very difficult for me to kind of negotiate the study abroad during the school year. Let me see, what am I doing now? So I am, I'm actually in between a job. I start next week, and I've just been enjoying the last month exploring. I visited Indonesia. My best friend lives there. I did some travel and just like hung out with family. But I was with a company called JSI, and I was a assistant director of their ed tech center, and a lot of my work was focused on strategy for leveraging technology for education. So how to use technology in different contexts to improve the quality of education or improve access to education opportunities. And now next week, I'll be starting as Director of Global Education Partnerships at a foundation called Team for Tech. And they do amazing work giving grants to smaller charities, NGOs globally on their digital transformation. I think that covered everything. Let me know if not, Laura.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Emily, whenever you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Great to meet you all. I'm Emily, and I graduated from Providence College in 2015. And I now work as a transportation planner, so urban planner in New York City, working with a lot of the bike projects, streetscape projects. I went back to grad school for urban planning in 2019. But at PC, I studied global studies and had a minor in Latin American studies, Spanish, and political science because they all kind of overlapped. So that was facilitated a lot of minors. But then for study abroad, I studied abroad with an SIT program, which I to this day still tout how much I love that program, and everyone should use SIT. But I was in Argentina in Buenos Aires, and then after graduation, I moved back to Buenos Aires actually, and did a Fulbright grant, and that's what really got me interested in transportation planning in particular, and what led me to my job today. So yeah, happy to talk with you all, and thank you, Laura, for facilitating.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for all the introductions. So now onto the Q&A. I have a couple questions prepared for you guys, and then after that, the students can ask you guys questions that they have themselves. So for the first question, if you pursued a master's abroad, what program did you pick and why? And if you guys want to go on the same order, that would be great. If you want to start first, whatever works for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So I picked the University of Cape Town Graduate School of Business 1-year MBA program. So the full-time MBA. There was a part-time and a full-time. Part-time was like an intensive 6 weeks, once every few months. And so you had folks from all over the world coming in who would go back to wherever they were from for a lot of that. So kind of like a different, interesting opportunity. That was mostly for people who like had a career and were working and would take like a chunk of vacation and go work on their MBA for a bit. I wanted like the more immersive experience to go to Cape Town and live there, and be in the program full time. So I opted for that. Reasons why I decided to go there. There were a number, definitely a number. Like one of the huge ones is price, for sure. Like if you're thinking about the cost of higher education in the US versus abroad, and you look at your like definitely check like accreditation, and like global rankings are important as well. If everything checks out there, you have a really good opportunity to save a ton of money and not be kind of like saddled with a bunch of student debt. So that was like not my number one reason for going there, but like at this stage of my life, I look back at it, I'm like, that was a really good decision. I'm very happy I did that. I'm not paying extra money every month about it. The real reason I like the educational reason why I went there is I'm like interested in emerging markets and learning about social innovation, and they had a really great program for social innovation there. And not to mention, like South Africa is an emerging market, so you're not only learning about emerging markets, but you're immersed in that space as well. The connections you make, the speakers that come into your classes are all just within that context. And so it was a much more just engaging environment to learn about that in. And so yeah, those are kind of the main reasons why I picked that program. And Cape Town is also gorgeous, and like you have white sand beaches and mountains side by side. It's like everything you could possibly want. So that helped a little bit.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely on my list to visit.
Definitely do it.
Yeah.
Definitely do it.
I actually didn't pursue a master's abroad, so I'm going to skip, but I will just add, and I put this in the chat, but for those that are joining through their phone, I forgot to share that I did do the Peace Corps after graduating. And that also kind of put me on a path for the grad school that I selected because I wanted to um, select a program that had a partnership with Peace Corps, and I can speak more about that. But just I'm going to turn it over to Emily in case, Emily, you want to share about your experience.
Yeah, I guess I can briefly say I didn't do a full-on master's program abroad. I went back to the States, I guess, to do that. But I did at one point, like when I finished the Fulbright year in Argentina, and I was considering staying in Argentina because I ended up staying there for 3 years. And after that 1 year program ended, I wanted to stay and I was looking at options. I did look into doing a 1 year specialization or master's at the University of Buenos Aires, and I did end up signing up for it for like 1 year. So I didn't do the full master's, but it was a specialization in political science. That technically was a higher ed program, and it was $1,000 for um, foreign students, but it's free to locals. So um, I think I did that to kind of create a reason for me to stay until I found a job, and then I did find a job, and so that was also fine. But yeah, that was my experience, and it was definitely unique from higher education in the US, or as far as like the environment. But happy to talk more too about that.
That's awesome. And Victoria, if you'd like, you can share like why you wanted to pick a program that wasn't related to like or partnered with the Peace Corps. If you'd like to share that right now, you could.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think to what Jeff said and what Emily shared about cost. So there are several programs, graduate school programs in the US that have a partnership with the US Peace Corps, wherein they will give you a tuition reduction that kind of recognizes what you've learned through your service and or put you in an accelerated program. So I had the latter. When I applied to the University of Denver, that was one of the things I was looking at is they're actually called Paul D. Coverdell Fellowship programs. And so that's the program that returned Peace Corps volunteers have access to at a number of universities across the US. And so in my case, rather than my degree taking 2 years to complete it, I was able to complete it in 1 year. It was still very expensive, but and I wish at the time I was like as creative as Jeff and Emily to like look at other options globally. But I think for what I wanted to do, it really was the one of the most well-known graduate school programs. So my master's was in international development and really like renowned school for international security, international relations, and diplomacy. And so for that reason, plus the Peace Corps partnership, I went there.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so for the next question, what would be your advice for a student that is considered living or studying abroad, or in the case of Victoria, pursuing Peace Corps after undergrad?
A lot of advice for sure, but the first thing that came to mind for me was make sure your visa situation is good. That's that can be pretty tricky, especially with like you know developing economies and like some of these countries are a little slower with their bureaucracy and could take a hot minute to get your passport back to you, for instance. And so give yourself a lot of time. Check like Reddit or wherever else if there are tips and tricks for how to like get your visa turnaround faster, because sometimes they get held up for like really kind of bogus reasons that you could nip in the bud, or there are like accelerators you can do. There's a service you can pay $50 to, and somebody will be a courier for you and take care of it. There's just some stuff like that. So that's like a really good one for laying the groundwork. Um, I would say have a good plan for when you arrive there also, um, to figure out housing and that whole situation, or talk to your classmates in advance. I wouldn't try and book housing in advance because there are a lot of scams out there, where folks are, you rent an apartment, pay a first and last month deposit, and then it never materializes. That's not experience from my side, thankfully, but that does happen to people. So good one to like connect with classmates and find a roommate, or be willing to like spend a week or two in a hotel when you first arrive wherever you're going. There's a couple things that come to mind with like the actual like emigration process, to really think about there. And you can pack pretty light too. It was like a pretty Spartan year for me because everything was in 2 bags that I brought, and like still like one of the happier years of my life. Like I think partially because of that. It's like, I don't have anything to worry about. It's great. So there's a few things coming to mind. If anything else comes up, while Victoria or Emily are talking, I'll chime in as well. But those are the first few things for me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Echo what Jeff said about important things to do to plan for in advance with like the visa stuff. But I would say like don't over plan, because when you're there, there's so much that you learn, so many connections that you make. And so like go in with, yeah, like have a living situation like at a that's short term. Like do not book anything long term in advance. That would be my advice. I know plenty of people, not during the Peace Corps, but when I was living and working in Cambodia, they would come as like volunteers or traveling with the expectation that like they would hope to like find a job, like get everything set up. And in that case, it was very easy for them because of the visa situation. And like that, if I was ever wanting to do that when I was younger, that's what I would do, as opposed to trying to find a job in Cambodia in the US, because there's just so many people that you meet and connections you make. You learn so much when you're physically there. So just like be open to that, and try not to like over plan and lock yourself into something that isn't actually, good. Then I would say, for more, I don't know, like career advice, just in line with like, kind of being open to what's out there. I think just try to meet as many people as you can when you're there. Say yes to things, be open to going to networking events or meeting people from different career paths. Just like expose yourself to as much as you can, because I think at that stage you're still trying to figure out like what you want to do and what different careers look like. So just exposing yourself to as much as you can, I found to be helpful.
Just echoing that real quick too with Victoria, like get involved, but like at the right balance also. I know like a lot of us at PC are like, I'm gonna get involved in everything. I'm gonna do like student congress, I'm gonna do BOP, I'm gonna do Friars Club, I'm gonna do a cappella, I'm gonna do like absolutely everything. Like pick a thing or two that you love and do that, and then leave yourself open to those opportunities. Or do something that like potentially opens up more opportunities. Like when I was in grad school, I ran the student pub when I was there, which was like my like class office position, which was kind of a joke because I was buying beer for my classmates. It was awesome. And running like a small space we had just for the students. But like it created this social atmosphere, created some like really great friendships with other people who were helping me to run this student space, and like I was able to go back for one of their weddings and stay in touch with other ones. So but at the same time, it was like 1 maybe 2 days a week I was involved in that. So I had lots of free time to explore Cape Town, get out and about, actually do my homework, like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I like the way you phrase that, Victoria.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I really echo what Jeff and Victoria have said. I think the flexibility, like being flexible and kind of just like if finding the balance of like going with the flow, but also kind of planning to a degree like how you want it to go and making sure, you know, logistical things like visas are set is important. And I think it's also like very country specific because like I don't know, I feel like when and also maybe depending on like what you end up doing, whether it's a master's program or like the Peace Corps or Fulbright or whatever is bringing you there, or you just go and like find a job. And I think it, my advice is to try and have like somewhat low expectations, like for not like the experience, but just like you kind of have to be flexible and like adjust like what you, if you have any prior thoughts. Like I think in my experience moving to Argentina afterward, it was very structured in a sense because I had like the Fulbright program to be the base and like connect me to like other people in the program. I found it actually quite easy, like much easier to meet people living there than I did. Like I worked for 6 months after PC before moving to Argentina because like the Fulbright in Argentina started kind of mid-year and I like had a hard time meeting friends like when I moved to Philly after PC and then like I moved to Argentina and it was like much easier to kind of find, you know, different groups of people who are like-minded people who are whether they're foreigners doing what I was doing or like locals who found a foreigner interesting, you know. So I think like um I think my advice is just to kind of be flexible and as far as like career advice personally, like I really think that going abroad and doing this right after school is the best way to kind of figure out what you want to do. Like Laura, you were mentioning how you have a lot of thoughts and like, you know, as global studies majors, we could do a lot of different things. And I'm sure I could have fallen into being a lawyer or fallen into like doing what Victoria's doing. You know, like I don't know. It's just like our experiences end up shaping what we end up pursuing. And so I think like the bottom line is like what you're doing by going abroad, if you can and have the opportunity to after graduating, is will open up those things and help you figure out what you want more. At least that was like my experience. And I think for me, even like waiting to go to graduate school was important because I didn't know what I wanted after PC. And so like I was able to find that through the experiences being abroad.
Uh, that's
Yeah,
it.
that's
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, go ahead.
only just to like to add to that too. Like I totally agreed. Like give yourselves a couple years after graduating from undergrad from PC. Like just even the amount that you learn in the workplace or like whatever you're doing for those couple of years is really going to inform your grad school experience in a lot of ways because so much of it is discussion based, is working with people who have been like in the workforce for 10 years and want a career change. Like you'll be surrounded by a lot of these different like situations that it helps to bring in your context and your anecdotes and just your experience. And it's gonna like be really it like enriches the learning experience quite a bit. So um good to like yeah. And plus you jump into something after undergrad, you're like, ah, you know what? I don't really like this too much. But you've checked a couple things off the list. You're like, I want to go more this direction. I've learned about this. Um, that's like totally a possibility. And so your grad school hopes and dreams could change. And so it's good to like give it a couple years. I think my program didn't allow you in until you're 25, probably for that very reason. And that was like actually totally like a godsend, I would say. So
Yeah, 100% agree with Jeff. The 2 years of Peace Corps, I can't tell you like how much my interest changed. And when I look back now at what I was interested in, environmental management and like natural resource management and security to like international relations. And now I'm working in ed tech and like totally different things. And yes, there are some points of intersection for sure. And I think my degree that I got was great, but I will say, wait so that you can enroll in grad school to like help you specialize in a career path, as opposed to just having a way to like, you know, explore things that you're interested in, right? Like, don't go to grad school for that. Like, do that in your workplace, and like while you're traveling and getting, you know, figuring out what you want to do, and then apply to grad school when you have like a better idea of what it is you want to pursue.
Yeah, that's really great. But I think too, because as students, we feel pressured to go to grad school right away, or, you know, law school, because a lot of people tell you that you don't get as many opportunities if you like right after undergrad, you know, which puts a lot of pressure because it's like, oh, this is the next step. But sometimes what people need is more time to figure out what they want, and that's okay. Yeah.
And that's totally going to come to you and like your experiences after. Like, and it might not be like the job you do, but it could be an aspect of it that you either love or hate. And so that kind of steers you. Like, so after undergrad, I did the Lutheran Volunteer Corps, which was part of AmeriCorps, and built homes with Habitat for Humanity for a year after. And that was a great experience. And I learned out of that one aspect of the job I really liked was doing project management, was figuring out like, oh, okay, so like we're building a house. I have to do like this step, this step, this step, align it all across a time scale, think about the materials and the people and the time that'll take for all that. And then like somehow fit it all together and it's totally not going to work out. And I have to like reconfigure stuff and make it work. And that's like sort of like in a blown up scale what I do today. And I think it's like a really enjoyable problem solving kind of aspect that I like picked out of my AmeriCorps experience. I was like, cool, I'm gonna do this. And like I don't think I really realized that until years later that that's sort of what I was doing, but like that's just like keep your eyes and ears open. And if something you like, there's probably a job out there that's doing that. And so like that experience is gonna really help inform it.
Yeah, that's great. Um, okay, so for the next question is, how has global studies and your abroad experiences prepared you for the current job that you have, or the current job that you'll have soon?
Anybody else want to go? I feel like I just talked.
I can go. I always think about this, and I really think I am so grateful for my SIT and study abroad experience for giving me the opportunity to like kind of go back abroad, because I think the hardest thing about like being a senior and figuring out and like you have interest in like going abroad and what are you going to do and how are you going to get there and how are you going to make it work, like the first question that you asked us, like I think it was very seamlessly like figured out for me through the like through the Fulbright opportunity, which like I basically took my SIT research paper that was from my time studying abroad and like developed it further to create the application for that, which was like I did the research grant. So like I studied access to water in this community an hour outside of Buenos Aires, and so that's I used that to kind of make the application. And so I am super grateful for global studies and the SIT program, and like SIT kind of emphasizing or global studies emphasizing SIT is like a very good cultural immersion experience for allowing me that opportunity to kind of get there. And then like once you're there, I mean, the hardest part is getting there. And I think Jeff and Victoria would, you know, agree that like once you're there, you make the connections and you kind of meet the people and you find the opportunities, and then it kind of all figures itself out. But I think it's daunting initially when you don't have a structure or like kind of know what's next. And I think for me, like global studies and my study abroad program really helped create the groundwork for providing that opportunity.
I'll go next. So I think there are two things that stood out to me that I carry with me even in my work today. And one of those is service. And that was such a big part of the Global Studies program. And it was something that I knew I wanted to I knew I wanted my career to be about was like service and impact, and having impact, and having that be part of my work. And so I don't think I would have necessarily discovered that if I was at if I was doing a different program or at a different school. So for sure that component of the program at Providence College, coupled with the think global, act local mindset of how can I contribute to a better world, and what does that mean for like where I am now and like my community here. And so that has definitely shaped like the path that I'm on. I think so. That's like kind of more like meta with the values and whatnot. But I think in terms of the actual like experiences I had, I studied abroad in Switzerland, and I was one of 4 Americans in my program, and that really shaped. I felt like I was in like the UN, like I felt like the program was just so international, and I realized like through that program that I really wanted to be, I really was energized by that setting of just learning about different cultures and backgrounds and ways of thinking about the world and problem solving together. So that definitely like put me on to a less like international diplomacy, international relations track, and why I was drawn to Peace Corps.
Thank you. And Emily, I saw your message. Like, if you would like to share that after Jeffrey's done, you're more than welcome to. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think like one of the like greatest takeaways from the global studies program for me is the like just valuing diverse perspectives. I think that is like so key and so important in what I do for a job now, and working with a bunch of folks who have really different skill sets than I do, but trying to like manage. We're building software, and I have like developers. I don't speak any coding languages. Like I have user experience people. Like they have like a very specific set of skills and understanding of how things are like best for the user. And so I need to really like sit and make sure that I understand everybody's perspective and value them all. And I think the global studies program was so key for that, because it to me like really opens your mind up to the fact that like, oh my God, there's so much going on outside of my headspace and my experience. And I think like I think part of why I chose global studies was having an understanding of that, but then going into it, you're like, oh, this is actually an order of magnitude greater than what I thought it could be. And I think part of that was studying abroad too, was being just like immersed in a different culture where the approach and reactions to like what's going on around you is so different and so diverse. And even within like the people within your program, for me, many of them are Americans, but like just the diversity within that group was amazing. So I feel like that's the biggest contribution for me. It's just like really being like, okay, I got to value these perspectives and really take stock of them and count them all. All yours,
Yeah,
Emily.
oh, thanks. Yeah, I definitely agree with the perspective shift and kind of making sure you kind of are aware of diverse opinions about things. And I think for me, one of the biggest things that I took from the global studies program was challenging status quo, and as Victoria mentioned too, making an impact and the service element. And I think that's something that drives me in my work and in pursuing urban planning for me. um, it I feel like that's still very integrated in my current position, as far as like like changing the status quo of like how streets are designed, um, trying to make things more environmentally sustainable by mode shift from cars to alternate modes. Like it's very ingrained in my way of thinking at work, and what's inspired me to to do what I'm currently doing. And I think all of us who end up choosing global studies have that ingrained in our psyche of like how we think about things and just like challenging things, how things are done, or like, having a perspective, like being exposed to diversity and diverse perspectives. So I think I really value that, and I see that still in my work now, thanks to global studies. And the people that we meet through global studies, like a lot of my best friends from PC to this day still are from that program, like everyone is very like-minded and thinking about these things. So I think I love having that tie too.
That's so awesome. Um, if you guys do you feel like you're done with the question? Yeah, answering it. Okay. So for the next question, it's if you could do it all over again, what are some things you would change or advice you give to yourself? Like in terms of the places that you studied abroad to yeah.
I don't think I'd change much. Like I I loved it. I really loved it. Like going abroad and then going back for grad school. I got like a taste of a culture I loved and like a people that I like really fell in love with, and then went back just to like embrace it all over again after a handful of years. And it was like, it was incredible. It was definitely the best year of my life. So yeah, I wouldn't have changed that. I'd probably be more organized looking back on it. Mentioned the visa thing, that would could have gone smoother. Um, I did want to think about like early on if you want to work there after. I think that I might have pursued that a little more because I really did want to, but the work requirements in South Africa are pretty tough. Probably no worse than the US, honestly, but like it's challenging to get sponsored and to get a job there. So if you do think you want to do that, start that process early and have a good idea of what you want to do. Obviously as soon as you can. So that I would have changed a little bit because I would have stuck around for a little bit, for like even for the year or something. Um, yeah, those are the main things. Otherwise, like I wouldn't trade anything for the experience. It's just incredible.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I'll share that when I look back at, my decision to do the Peace Corps, especially, best decision of my life, hands down. And I would not have changed anything about that, even though at the time I was like, I don't know anything about China. I have no idea why I was sent here. But looking back, it was just such an amazing experience because I really got to be put in situations that challenge me and take me out of my comfort zone. And so I'm very grateful for how that all worked out. I think the advice that I said earlier is the advice that I wish somebody had given to me, which is don't like over plan. I felt after, even during undergrad, I was like, wanting to just like have a next thing to go do. So I actually had the option to go to Africa, but I needed to wait 6 months. And I was just so, I think, ready to like go to the next thing and like I said, all worked out. Like I'm so happy that I went to China, but it was serendipitous how it worked out because they had given me the option to go to Africa, which is where I wanted to go if I was willing to wait. And so I think I was on this track of like do what's the next thing, plan. And then same thing with grad school. I finished Peace Corps in July of 2011 and I was in grad school in August 2011. Like I didn't really give myself much time for that like open, what's the future have for me, and like spontaneity and what's going to come in. I felt like I was just like trying to plan everything myself. And so that would be the only thing that I wish, because who knows, like maybe I would have, if I had more time, like gone to a different program, and looked at and explored international program outside of the US. So that's my only advice, I would say.
Yeah, I really, really relate to that. I think it's so ingrained in us to constantly like want to plan the next thing, like, and in the school setting, that's literally like what's required. And so I think I wouldn't change anything either. I think I would just like tell myself to be more relaxed and be more, um, I don't know, like also it wasn't all great, you know? Like I think there were some hard moments, and I think I look back on it now and I was like, I look on back on it with such rosy colored glasses now where I'm like, oh my God, I can never replace that time. Like I feel very since coming back because I after Argentina, then I lived in Ireland for a year, and like so I had like it was not till 2019 that I moved back. So it feels like I guess I've been back for the same amount of time that I was gone now, but I think it took me a long time to kind of feel like settled again and kind of like at peace with not wanting to like do something else and go back abroad. And I think at the time when I was living in Argentina, I was like frustrated a lot. Like things were sometimes difficult, and like I would just be, um, hard on myself and on the country for like problems that I saw. But like I have those same problems now, and I'm not there. Like, so it's like it was just if I could tell myself like to just be more relaxed and not like not everywhere is perfect, not everything is going to be this way. Like it was a planning mode mentality of like what's my next move, and like okay, if I'm not here for that if I'm here for 3 years, then like where will I be next, and like just constant kind of like trying to find the next thing that will fit in. I mean, to a degree you'd need that, but like I think I was just like more hard on myself about it, and like it kind of was stressful at times. So I think just like kind of acknowledging that things are going to be rough sometimes and not perfect, and that's fine. And like it won't be better or worse in a different if you're not there. So I don't know. That was just like something I only realized like after the fact, kind of.
Yeah, I agree, like, too, like, even I just went abroad, like, last semester, but there were definitely some tough times that I went through myself, so, like, it's true that, like, abroad is amazing and there's some really great moments, but there also is gonna be times where either you miss your family or, you have conflict with, like, the people there, and, like, but obviously, like, we tend to remember the fun, like, happy times, but I think it's okay, like, I think the hardships are part of your experience, and then that shapes you into, like, who you become, and I also would not change anything, like, about my experience or, done differently because I think, like, everything that I did and that I went through, like, was supposed to happen, so thank you guys for sharing that. Um, okay, so for the last question that I have today for you guys is, how did you navigate your own identity while being abroad?
Yeah, that's a good one. That was especially interesting because it was like 2015 into 16. So I'll remember who was running for president at that point. And so that was like something that gets tagged to you. I'm sure anyone's been abroad, you get that exact same thing. Um, yeah, navigating your own identity. I think that's such a good question. It makes for me it made me realize what I appreciate about my own culture and like what is in me, and like recognize that more than when I'm home and in the US. And so I think I like learned to embrace a few things about myself and learned a few things about myself that I was like, yeah, this is actually like this is okay, this is good, this is fun. And also like the the friends I've made here appreciate this about me, and it's like a thing that is like either uniquely American or just like the product of the culture that I live within. And so um I treated it as like a little bit of a like let me step back and be kind of like introspective about this and like and just observe a little bit of that. And I thought that was a big growth opportunity for me. Certainly helped me to like identify some opportunities, some things that I really love about myself. Like that, I think that was great. So yeah, I'm gonna noodle on that a little more, but that's it comes to mind first.
I had a big like identity crisis because I don't know if there's another way to describe it, but that's how I would describe it, because I was coming from straight from school, straight from being a student athlete into the Peace Corps. And so my like I was becoming who I was going to be in the workforce and in my life, and coming from being a student where I didn't really like have that same level of independence and autonomy and like connection with like my identity of like who I am. So I think for me, like those 2 years were just so formative, because I was like learning about myself in ways that I wasn't able to when I'm in such a structured environment within like the college setting. So I think just like being aware of that, like that, you like give yourself some grace and like be patient, trying to like understand like what it is you're interested in. And that's why it's so important to be open, because you just don't, there's just so many new things that you're getting exposed to, and just, kind of saying yes to things and figuring out, do I like this? Yes or no? Like, what do I like about it? What don't I like about it? I think in terms of, yes, definitely what Jeff said about like appreciating American, like it makes you reflect on your own culture and your own, culture and norms and things from where you grew up. And so, things that you love about it, things that you don't love about it, all that. And again, like, being open and patient and just like exploring that. And then the last thing I would say is that, your identity changes over your life. And so just being open to that, right? And what does that mean? And what is the shift that's happening? I became a mom 3 years ago, and over 3 years ago. And like, that was a huge shift for me in my identity, and like, just kind of letting, and throughout your lifetime, you have lots of shifts. So just being aware of that and being patient with yourself, because it's big, it's a big life change to go from school, from college, academic setting to out in real life, and just being patient with yourself.
Yeah, it's like interesting what you said there too, just about like your shifting identity and the fact that like when you're going to grad school abroad or studying abroad, it's like it's a short, narrow window of time, and it's so different than your normal setting. You can look back on it and really kind of identify yourself in that time and like what you were like then, in a way that like I can pretty freshly do that now. It's been at almost 10 years, and like I think that's something to like I don't know, cherish, I guess, or like really think about in the moment, maybe retrospectively. But I think that's like that's a profound point you made. So wanted to make sure I called that out again.
Yeah, I feel like I only was like really reflective of my identity after like coming back to the States maybe. And I remember that even like that feeling from coming back after study abroad, because like the study abroad was a much more intense, I think, time versus like after going back abroad. I think I had already made that initial like equilibrium or whatever, like when I studied abroad. But I think for me, I mean, I was in Argentina during Trump's election too, and also I'm from Florida, and it was like also the Parkland shooting happened, and like there was like a lot of like protests going on in the States, and like things were like seemingly like devolving in the US at the time that I was like in Argentina, in a country that like historically was like unstable and has like in crazy inflation and like constantly in unstable like political entities. Yet like my country back home was like kind of going crazy to my standard, but like everything was kind of seemingly calm and like still functioning, like it was like I felt like this weird I remember feeling like I should be back home, like to help or, like to do something, like to be protesting or do something. And I mean, there were protests, like a lot of Americans that lived in Argentina were like protesting outside the embassy. And like that was still something that I was involved in, but I felt like this weird like guilt of not being home for that. And so I think that was something that I don't know, I guess my identity there was like very much like kind of wrapped up in my Americanness at that time. But then I think like coming back to the States, like I think that's more when I've been like reflective of like what it means to be like, I think my identity was actually very much revolved around being someone that lives abroad. Like when I would come home, it's like, oh, you live in Argentina, or you live in Ireland, you live somewhere else. And then like I came back and it's like, okay, I'm like, that's not my identity anymore. Like I'm actually living here again. And I think that was like a shift that I had to make in my head that was like harder actually, because I had like grown so fond of like my identity as like someone that lives abroad. And I've talked to like other friends who I knew from Argentina, and they all have that same feeling. And I don't know. That was something that I don't know. I just found it something I had to work through.
No, that's a great point. Like, I think we all like go through a culture shock after coming back from abroad from like even the original country that you're from because you were so used to the way people were living in the country that you were studying in or living in or working in, and now you're back to your original country. Like, wait, like this, I didn't do this way, or like people did this differently, which is like, yeah, crazy to think about. Um, but then I think, at least for me, the way I see it's like with the where you were at, like that becomes part of your identity, and like the different places that you're in and living in become part of your identity and like who you are, like and what you learn when you were living there.
Absolutely.
I think like another identity aspect there too. I I don't know if this is like an actual quote or if it's real or if it's just like woodsy folk wisdom from my dad. But he's like, "Oh, your true self is who you are and how you behave when nobody's looking." And it's like, okay, like there's something to that, I guess. Like, yeah, I'm gonna like dance around the house when no one's here. Like I like a moron, that kind of thing. Um, when you study abroad or like go to anywhere abroad, like there's kind of nobody looking because nobody knows you. And so you have this opportunity to like I kind of mentioned this earlier, like step back and observe yourself a little bit, see what you want to do and see what you're interested in and have, and it can be like a little bit of a selfish experience and that you're like, okay, like what's Jeff gonna do today? What things is he gonna get into? And like what habits is he going to form? Um, and like what's his routine going to look like? And you see some of those things and you're like, you come back from that experience or during the experience, you're like, oh, that's actually, I really carried this thing with me when I went somewhere else and continued doing it, or I dropped this thing, or I picked this thing up. Um, and like, there's certain things that you can again look at that snapshot of yourself and be like, that's who I was then, or like this is a thing I still carry with me from the moment when like nobody was looking. And that was kind of like true picture of myself. And yeah, that was also like just a huge growth opportunity. So ton of value in that.